All right, everybody, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for your patience. We always like to give it a couple of minutes before we get moving, just to let people kind of get filed in. People invariably coming from one meeting to the next. And, try and get everybody in before we get kick started. My name is Steve Ward. I will be your host for today's session. A couple little housekeeping items. We have the session being recorded. We will definitely make the recording of the session available to you probably within the next 24 hours once we get it back and get it all ready and kicked out the door. Feel free to share that with folks inside your organization. We've got phones on mute, but we want to hear from you. So if you've got questions as we go along, please throw them over the wall. You can use the chat window. I believe there's a question window as well. We'll try and get to those and as many of them as possible before the session ends. Session will probably give you a little bit of time back, probably maybe, I don't know, let's call it 35 minutes, 40 minutes from now is what I'm hoping to get done in. We'll definitely be putting up contact details should questions not get answered or you want to do follow-up at the tail end of the session. Keep an eye on that chat window. My colleague Scott, who's helped me out here, is probably going to throw a couple of links across as we go along. And with that, without further ado, welcome to our session. So we're here today to talk about rounding out payment security and moving from a focus on data protection at the point of transit and data protection at the point of rest to a focus on protecting data at the point of input, stopping the e-skimming threat, which has basically been plaguing us for quite some time. But is now, advancing in terms of sophistication and frequency, and is actually, a component of changes that have come in PCI DSS 4.0. Sort of being a requirement to focus on from a compliance perspective, the security side of the e-skimming threat, protecting against it. So just go ahead and get started here and kind of give you a little bit of background on who we are. We're Source Defense. We have been in the market for a number of years now, probably since 2019, I would say is when we first brought the product commercially available. We were created to stop the e-skimming problem, sort of a solely focused kind of organization. We are here focused on stopping the theft of data at the point of input and stopping the leakage of data through your partner networks that you may not know is happening. So we're a data privacy and a data security firm. We've got some great customers across the world. We are a truly global organization, got a follow the sun model, headquarters in the U.S., headquarters in Israel. And we've got folks all over the place, relying on us to help them stop this problem. Probably about 20 billion in e-commerce sales protected on an annual basis, and about 8 billion security and compliance privacy violations thwarted on an annual basis. And I'll talk more about the privacy side in the context of this issue as we go along. What is digital skimming? What is e-skimming? Why do we got to focus on it? Might not be the topic that you read about every day in the news, but there's a lot of warning out there and a lot of drumbeat in the last, let's call it, 6 to 12 months. From people in the know saying, if you're doing commerce or if you're collecting sensitive data on your web properties, you got to watch out because these attacks are happening all the time. They're changing in sophistication. They're slow and low. Many organizations that are hit by them don't see them, don't know that they're there for multiple years. And it's because of the fact that these attacks are targeting the third-party code integrations that are utilized by the world's modern websites. So it's a supply chain issue. Visa is warning there's a 75% of all breaches that they've looked at involve this type of attack pathway. Threat actors are targeting your supply chain, these third-party service providers, what I call your digital supply chain, that make up, the power of the website to steal PII, PCI data, card data, PHI, if you're in the healthcare industry. I know there's a couple of folks from healthcare, here, and even credentials data, things of that nature. So Visa saying, watch out, steady increase. 75% of the breaches they're looking at are happening this way. Verizon, just a couple of months ago, said 18% of all retail breaches they're seeing involve e-skimming. And from what we've looked at, this is a problem that 95% of the world's websites are susceptible to, likely yours. And that's why, there's such a drive on, I think, from the compliance end of things, if you are a PCI mandated firm, to make us focus on this, because it's with everything that we've had to focus on. And man, it's been a long career for those of us in security for some time. And, definitely a busy last few years. This is probably something that hasn't exactly been on the top of your radar. And it's definitely a blind spot in security that's got to get plugged, to make sure, that this 95% number dissipates. I'm not going to go too much into, all of these case studies, right? But, I know that I'm always asked, well, like, what are some of the high level examples of these types of attacks? There's two, sort of older, but I would say kind of like marquee case studies around the e-skimming attack pathway, around what you might hear referred to as digital skimming or mage card attacks. British Airways, they suffered a fairly large hit, 400,000 users impacted. They were actually fined $229 million on the back of that breach by the GDPR regime. It got settled down to about 20 million. And then they suffered, some subsequent class action lawsuits. Ticketmaster is another really good example, and a good case study that could be out there. You can read through, kind of understand a little bit more about the problem. Use these kind of examples not to shame victims by any stretch of the imagination, but to give you some things that you can look up, maybe use as part of the internal dialogue on the issue. There's a number: Equifax, Warner Music, Smith & Wesson, Claire's, Michigan State University, DoorDash, Macy's, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And, what you see is a large number of large number of retailers here, but also that is not just isolated to retail. You've got universities getting caught up on it. You've got healthcare firms that have been caught up in the past. You've got, firms that are selling digital assets, not physical assets, like Warner Music. Give you a number of different examples that you can look through, out in the wild. There's been some great reporting on the threat and some good threat research. I would point you to Recorded Future. They did a great study at the tail end of 2022 that really, I think enumerated the problem. They were seeing anywhere from like 10 to 12,000 websites impacted, on a monthly basis. I'd point you to the Visa biannual threat report and the Verizon data breach report as two other really great examples. But just giving you some things, to look up and read. Where does this threat come from? What's the problem? How does it manifest? The problem is JavaScript. Okay. The problem is that, the modern website is powered by JavaScript, and JavaScript is everything, everywhere, all at once. So the issue here is that JavaScript, can perform any action and behave in virtually any way it wants on any website where it's running. And it happens to be running on, over 97% of all websites in the world. There's no native security controls, and the bad guys know that. And, so you might, again, hear this mage card or e-skimming, form jacking, credential harvesting, you name it, right? All kind of synonymous attack pathways, all leveraging JavaScript, and all leveraging the third-party JavaScript that's running on your site. So where did all the script come from? Why is it there? It's the move from brick and mortar, if you're in the retail sense, from brick and mortar to everything digital. It's the move from, dealing with clients at the bank front to dealing with them online. It's the move to digital medicine. We are a highly digitized world. The pandemic, really drove massive hockey stick increase in both commerce and digital interaction. And we are I'd say, picky people with needs and expectations that have resulted in, us focused on experience as the brand owners, right? We know that our users want a very rich experience to keep coming back to. They want audio, video, multimedia plugins. They want to be able to see rankings and comments and feedback from other purchasers or other clients, other folks in the mix. They want to be able to see the social proofing. They want to be able to share out. They want to follow your social channels. They want to have chat, whether it's video or chat bot or some form of some kind of support and help. You want to be able to offer, multi-dimensional analytic harvesting so that you can target better, so that you can serve better, so that you can offer things if you're in the retail world that increase that shopping cart value, and so we have to plug things into the site, widgets, dynamic forms, orders and payments forms, digital display ads, again, the analytics side of things. We need these things to deliver both what the user demands and what the business demands. So much so that, we did a report about this time last year. We're about to update it with some new data that looked at, 4,500 of the world's top websites and, really put a benchmark on things. And as an average, we're seeing that, at minimum, you're going to have 12 third parties plugged into your website, right? So 12 partners in this digital supply chain. Most likely, you'll see at least 3, outside partners called on by the partners about. We call them, the fourth party scripts or the nth party scripts, the sort of downstream food chain or supply chain there. And surprisingly, you'll see, just as many scripts on the site on average on the most sensitive pages on the site, where that really sensitive, valuable data, which is either needed to be protected from a privacy perspective or kept from being stolen, is actually being entered in, right? And so I point you to, we've got this risk report you can read, that sort of gives you a good benchmark on things. It's called Third-Party Digital Supply Chain Risk. That'll be one thing we'll pop a link to at the back end. But some good numbers, for you to use and understand, like where you stand against your peers from a benchmarking perspective. But there's a lot of people in the mix. There's a lot of players in the mix, and that means there's a lot of things going on that are outside of your control. 82% of the code and the actions that are occurring, with the script running on your website are out of your control. You didn't write it. You can't vet it. You don't manage it. You don't know how to secure it. You can't even look right now, and understand, exactly what it's doing. And so that creates a problem. I mean, effectively, what the modern website is doing is running a bunch of shadow code. So is it legitimate? Is it compromised? Is the legitimate action of the script doing something that might violate policy? If it was compromised, how long ago was it? What was it compromised to do? These are all questions that we can't answer without the proper script management visibility, the script management approach that Source Defense is designed. And that there are some homegrown things you can do as well. We'll talk about, but without really digging in and getting the visibility into the supply chain, you're flying blind and you're opening up the organization, to some severe risk. And in that experience means everything kind of mode. Yeah, we as consumers or we as customers or clients, however you want to refer to us, we want the world, but we also want our data secure and we want our data private. And that's absolutely huge to the experience. So much so that, the fickle consumer will ditch a brand 1 in 5 times after a data breach. So 20% of consumers, are going to walk away from your brand if you suffer a breach. And 78% of consumers have said they think twice about doing business with your brand in the first place if a data breach could occur. So, try to drive home a little bit of the table stakes, what's at risk, an understanding of how this is happening. But what I really want to emphasize is what makes this use of this script so dangerous for both data privacy and, for data theft is, honestly, the code is basically almost malware when you look at it in its benign form. And exploit kits are so cheap. Like we're seeing Mage Card exploit kits maybe $1,500 at the high end. And data leakage should actually be expected as a matter of normal operation. Again, because we're not monitoring and putting controls over top of these scripts. So we've actually analyzed the benign state of the scripts that are known to be running, that are allowed to be running. And we've seen the ability to change page content. We see key logging happening. We see the ability to add dynamic content, images, text, video, form fields, obviously track website user behavior, even capture and remove data, exfiltrate data, and redirect visitors. These are all things that you would expect malware to do by design, for the purposes of the value that these scripts add. It's already in there. And so just imagine, if you're an adversary with not that sophisticated of capability, how easy it would be, to co-opt one of the 13 or so partners you've got running on your site that happen to be also running on thousands of other websites, right? Because these are popular services that are being called in. Just imagine how easy it would be, to pilfer some really, really important data. But also, again, we've got to pay attention to the fact that many of you are either governed by GDPR or have other state-based, privacy requirements where you actually need behavioral control over that script to just avoid the normal behavior from jeopardizing your compliance posture. And that brings me to a few examples that I think are important. And, there's multiple to be found out there. One from just a couple of weeks ago, Google and Meta, are facing lawsuits for allegedly scraping data on tax refund sites, incredibly sensitive data, refund amounts, social security numbers, addresses, all the really solid PII that you want protected. There's articles about, thousands of websites basically, with scraping and key logging capabilities, from their partners being deployed. Meta was sued for violating patient privacy, scraping health data, from hospital sites, and then running ads related to, highly sensitive conditions that people had that should never have been known, violating patient privacy rights. And to drive the point home, I pointed to some of the things that the script can do. What we've seen in the benign form, in the analysis that we did, that same report, was 49% of the time the scripts running on site had code to retrieve form inputs. 49% of the time they had listeners responding to clicks. They had code to modify forms, about 0.25%. And code to listen to forms being submitted, about 20% of the time. Some really not great things happening in just the normal state. But anyway, that's the problem, right? Now, what are we going to do about the solution, and what does it mean for you? And how can you get there, right? The good news is the problem is fairly complex. The solution, at least as we've designed it, is very, very simple, very hands-off, designed to really just make this be something that goes away in a set it and forget it kind of mentality, as opposed to what we're all used to in the security and compliance world, which is more work, more strain on an already strained organization, the need for more FTEs we can't find and hire, the need for laborious integrations between, one new technology and the tech stack. That's not us. That's not this approach. And I think what bodes well is when you're looking at what PCI is saying, for those of you that are governed by PCI, getting to check most of the boxes on that is fairly simple. And it's actually fairly simple with something that we've given to the world for free. But even just more of a relief, that our broader clients feel, when they know source defense is just taking it off their shoulders for them. So let's get at what, the solution looks like, what PCI has said, right? So PCI caught up. They're listening to the world. They got the ear to the ground. They made the change last year. Coming in March, right, is when 3.2 is out the window. 4.0 is the new law of the land. And then, by that same point in 2025, you got to be compliant or the fines are going to start kicking in, right? They're basically saying, look, we recognize the issue means client-side security, means extending security on the web side of things beyond just the server, into the browser. And it can be done from the web property itself, right? It's about adopting and applying controls over the script to make sure as script is running inside the browser session, even if it's compromised, it doesn't have access to steal that data and prevent the theft in the first place. So what they've said is, look, you got to first start by knowing what the heck is going on across your web properties. And I know, a lot of our clients that we've talked to, it's a tough one because e-commerce or digital or whatever the name of the organization is inside your organization, they've had a lot of control and a lot of freedom and a lot of flexibility over what goes on that site, right? It's, kind of a wild, wild west situation. We need it. We want it. We're marketing. This drives the business. We're going to put it on there. We own the website. You don't. And that's led to a lot of spiraling out of control with these scripts, and a lot of like just organizational gap, right? If you don't know what's there, how do you know what it's doing? How can you protect it, right? So number one, confirm that every script, that you know what every script is that's running on the website, okay? Have a full inventory of all scripts running on the payment pages, okay? Number two, confirm that every script is authorized, right? Is it supposed to be there? Hey, let's have a dialogue on this thing. Is this script that's running, that's 2 years, 3 years ago under a previous regime or a previous strategy? Do we want it on this payment page? Does it have to be here? What's the purpose of it? Let's have a conversation. Let's figure out if there's a way we can minimize, the potential attack pathways here, and close some gaps if these are things we don't really need, right? So have to have an inventory, have to confirm that it's there and authorized to be there. Then you've got to assure the integrity of the script, right? Is it running and is it doing things that, it should be doing? Has it been compromised? Is it behaving abnormally? Could this be, an indication that, there's an adversary working on it, right? Got to monitor, got to understand what's going on, and got to take action, when something bad happens, right? Got to monitor the payment page headers. Make sure every 7 days that there hasn't been a change that hasn't been authorized, that you know what's going on there, right? And then obviously you got to alert and block on all malicious scripts on the payment pages. When our clients work with us, it's the full kit and caboodle here. This is like by design. We designed this before this was even PCI requirements. This is what we do. We show you full visibility of what's on the website. We know what the scripts are that are running. We, are alerting, but we're just automatically blocking malicious behaviors. Again, we're not like flagging things for you to have to take action against. We're just taking care of it. So that's sort of like what Source Defense does. And, given that we kind of had a hand as a participating organization with PCI in sort of driving forward the advancements, we figured we should probably do something for the community, both the QSA side of things and the merchant end of things, to try and help solve the problem, and not be just leading you towards, the sales team's door. So what we did is we built a solution that we've given out as a freeware solution that you can use to get you almost all the way towards compliance. Obviously, we have to stay in business, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But let's talk first to sort of like what you might find when you start digging back into the standard or having a conversation with your QSAs or an ISA if you've got one inside the organization, and what some of the recommended options might be. So they basically, as the council does, provided some options. They're not all commercial, have to be purchased. There's some things you can do yourself, right? DIY solutions. But you're going to have to hack them together, and then it's going to be more problems, more things to manage, more time to get developed. It's not an insignificant proposition, but hey, like it can be done with a combination in somewhat of a few things. So they point to sub-resource integrity, and that could theoretically be utilized for the script integrity component of what they're calling for. We believe that, it's going to be applicable in the first party sense, not so applicable in the use of third and nth parties. And that ultimately is really where the problem lies. So we really don't think that one checks the box that solidly. They point to CSP. There is an element of allowing behavioral control when utilizing content security policy, but it's more of a whitelisting approach, than it is, an approach at really monitoring and looking at behavioral shifts. There are scripts that are dynamic. We have one client, multiple brands that they own, multiple properties, that are seeing like thousands, 4,300, I think is the number, of changes to script from their partners on an annual basis. Changes are going to occur in the natural state of things. CSP, at a whitelist side of things, not going to give you an indication as to what's going on into those changes. When you look at like things like managing the process of script management and identification and then authorization and all of that, you're getting into workflow tools, spreadsheets, things of that nature. So, what we've tried to do is just simplify the problem. We pride ourselves in not being like, kind of like the biggest thing for you to worry about in terms of platforms. We're fine with being something that runs in the background because you don't need any more crap to deal with, quite frankly. You got too much on your hands already. So what we've built is a really nice, really elegant PCI-focused dashboard. Again, available in a freemium, freeware kind of capacity, right? We'll give you some, capabilities free out of the gate. There's some upgrade options if you want to use them. But ultimately, we think, you'll want to go and just take the thing completely off the shoulders. But we're going to give you something to work with. You take it, you do what you want, and then hopefully what you do, if you like us enough and appreciate it enough, the candor, and what we know and what we can do, maybe you'll come and call in and you'll want to do something, to just jump into the Source Defense Protected fold. But ultimately, you can go to our website right now. Scott, he'll be throwing up a link in the chat if he hasn't already, that points to this. And we're going to be able to, from an external perspective, help you check, most of the boxes that you need for PCI compliance right out of the gate. Okay. First thing is we'll scan externally. We're going to give you an inventory of every script that's running on the payment page. We're going to give you an inventory date. We're going to give you a new script added date. Give you the checks and balances and the control capability of that first requirement. Know what's there, right? And so we'll also give you a full deep dive view into what those scripts are as we identify them. A script tree that tells you not just what script it is, but what it's designed and in place to do. And again, that helps foster that dialogue as to whether or not things need to be there. And that gets you into that justification conversation. Really simple. We'll give you the ability to say, okay, out of those 18, I only have 3 where I know they've been justified. I've got 15 conversations to go have. Got to track down people in the organization, figure out why this is there. Have a dialogue as to whether or not it's supposed to be there or not be there. Get rid of the ones that shouldn't be there. Close up that justification process, and we'll become your sort of platform of record for that. And then we give you a weekly scan of the HTTP headers. That's available, I believe, for like the first 90 days, of use on the freeware side of things. From there, beyond that, I think it's a nominal fee, to upgrade to keep that in place. But we're going to give you full view into any changes. We'll detail the changes. We'll provide specific response as to what we saw and detailed analysis as to whether or not you should be concerned. So it provides sort of like an alerting capability on any changes that are found there. We're going to give you those alerts, but this is more noise, just so for the organization to figure out what to do with, right? But the requirement says must alert on any events, any behavior that, seems malicious on the payment page. We'll give you the alerts. We're going to break it down for you, give you the risk rating on what we're seeing, explain what the behavior is, even identify risky behaviors, again, back to that data privacy side of things for you to work with, things for you to do and take action on, right? But then ultimately, what we want you to do is come back and, just take it off your shoulders, right? And that's, what's in it for us. We also, out of the gates, will give you full visibility into those shadow scripts that I discussed, those fourth parties, fifth parties, et cetera. But again, that's a feature we've got turned on for, I believe, about 90 days. And then from there, it scales back. There's a problem out there. It's one of a million problems for you guys to deal with. It's wide scoping. It could impact you. It could impact you in a slow and low kind of capacity. The powers that be are warning you about it. It's lingered on for far too long. Solving the problem is not that difficult. It's super easy. We're here to help you do that. PCI says you got to do something about it. We're going to help you do something about it without even having a commercial relationship with you. That's kind of the summary is do something about it. And we're going to be here to help you. And so we're Source Defense. I told you at the onset of the call, I'd try and keep it to about 35, 40. So I've sped up, a lot of my bloviating, normalcy to try and get you to that because I know a lot of important people on this call. I want to go to questions for any that we have, but I want to give you the URL first. It's just right there, super easy, sourcedefense.com/free-PCI. You can go and you can download that freeware. If you want to talk to us, there's links there where you can request a demo. We can talk, more bigger picture stuff, the broader protection capabilities that we have. A lot of resources that are available on the website to educate yourself on the subject. We have a full PCI resource section. I know Scott has put that in the chat window for you. We've got, the white paper that I mentioned that can help you, drive internal dialogue. It's all about help from the source defense end of things. That's what we're here to do, and that's all I got to say about that. So with the time we got here, I would like to, if there's any questions, go ahead and field them, and I'll ask my partner Scott there to help me with that as I kind of get out of presentation mode and switch over here into this dashboard. And Scott, if you can just kick over anything that you've got. I know I saw one coming through. I'm trying to find it. A question about the approach, whether or not it's defined or custom. We've had this multiple times. I think on pretty much every webinar. I think people are starting to get dug into this and kind of get their head around what the PCI requirements are. This is a defined approach under the PCI requirements. So if you look at, I believe it's 6.4.3, they reference CSP, they reference SRI, or the use of a proprietary script management solution from a commercial vendor, and that's ultimately what they would categorize us as. So that's that question. Let's see what else we got. Okay. Do we address issues more broadly than PCI? Yes, absolutely. I know there's some people on here that maybe it's not all about PCI, but it's basically about protecting sensitive data. We right now our compliance dashboard is PCI focused, but we definitely know that there's some touches into things like FERPA and CCPA and you name it, right? FFIEC and things of that nature. And so we've got some ability to help connect up what we do to the broader compliance regimes, and are working to deliver visibility specific to those in future iterations of our solution. Okay. How does source defense price itself? So it really is a conversation that we kind of have to have on like an individual case basis. It's not a transaction oriented kind of thing. It's not like, we're not your taking a penny per transaction or a tenth of a penny per transaction. There's some volume stuff that's got to get, discussed. There's multiple domains and conversations that we have to have about, the brand and how many brands you're trying to protect, et cetera. So what I would say is, a deeper conversation on that. I'd hate to sort of generalize, really is something that we would do one-on-one. For existing customers, where do we find the new PCI dashboard? I don't see a link to the admin portal. I would point you to customer success on that one. I know that they were doing some things really recently. I'm not in customer success, so I don't know the time frame on it. But to get the full new PCI dashboard as part of the admin portal. So I would contact your rep on that one, and they should have an answer for you about timeframes and when, and get you taken care of in a heartbeat. I know that there are some customers of ours who are now addressing they've already addressed the security problem. Now it's become a compliance problem, and we want to help you on both fronts. So, or you can drop me a line if you need to, and I can help drive a good, fast response for you. It's just steve@sourcedefense.com. Okay. All right. How fast can the solution be deployed? Yeah, that's one of the beautiful things about what we do is, this is a very simple, kind of proposition in the grand scheme of what you're used to doing in security. We're not talking about we're talking about days to test, and even that is, sort of extending it farther than what's needed. And we're talking about, days to weeks to implement. And, so it's a quick burn in, and it's not something that's, I know we all have experienced, I've been all over the security map, endpoint and network and forensics and, all these things. I know that there have been some lengthy propositions in security. This is not one of them. Okay, Scott, do we got anything else from the crowd here that I need to address? Okay, folks, it looks like we have reached the end of our questions. So what I would like to just remind you to do before you jump is you can see all the links that Scott's pointed you to in the chat window. Go ahead and grab any of those that you feel you want to learn a little bit more about, including the one I've got up on the screen right now, which is the freeware, link. And then I'm just Steve. Good job, Scott, to put that in there too. I'm just Steve at sourcedefense.com. Drop me a line if you have any questions we didn't get to today. Appreciate you taking the time out, and happy to engage now in the future as you get deeper into your understanding of what's going on with 4.0. Whatever the case may be, keep fighting the good fight on your end of things. We're out here. Don't be shy. Let us help you. That's ultimately what we're after.